they beat this into our heads about Dewey. He was wonderful in education. Did you also know that he was the head of the psychology? He was the president of the American Psychological Association. We all know how honest and wonderful they are. Did you? And Columbia University, Chicago, didn't ring any bells? You know, Bill Ayers, Obama. It's just everybody comes through Chicago. Anyway, he was known as the voice of liberal and progressive democracy for over 50 years. Here's the thing that's interesting. He was one of the original signatories on the Humanist Manifesto.
So the Humanist Manifesto was signed in 1933, the first one. It was signed by Dewey and about 34 or 33 other people. It's based on the Communist Manifesto. So it's the same principles: elevate man, eliminate God, atheistic society. You can go read the whole thing, but the 14th point talks about a socialized, I'm just reading the yellow here, the humanists are firmly convinced that a socialized and cooperative economic order must be established to the end that the equitable distribution of the means of life be possible. The goal of humanism is a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good. Humanists demand a shared life in a shared world. So stand these theses of religious humanism. Humanism is not just an organization, it's an actual religion according to the people that wrote the document. So in our school system, instead of religion, we have irreligion, as Neil A. Maxwell calls it. Religious humanism has supplanted a belief in God with a belief in man and the elimination of God. This is a central influence in our national education system, and it is definitely pushing down into our system. Bill Ayers. Everybody knows Bill Ayers. Created Students for a Democratic Society, founder of the Weather Underground, terrorist organization, blew up New York police station, Pentagon. He wanted a Marxist revolution. But at some point after the bombing, he realized that's not the way to really bring in people and to ingratiate yourself with the population. So he said, we've got to switch from a revolutionary change to an evolutionary change through the education system. So he became an educator. And he is the head of the education department at the University of Washington and Chicago. And part of the Weather Underground Manifesto, which he and several others wrote, talks about this struggle for self-determination has two stages. A united front against imperialism and for new democracy, and two, developing out of the new democratic stage, socialism. So we see that in the 60s when they wrote this, they knew that their goal was, we've got to turn people toward a new democracy. We need everybody involved, and you'll see why shortly. But the goal of this, he said, is the destruction of U.S. imperialism and the achievement of a classless world communism. That's their goal. And so their major point here was, how do we reach youth? We've got to get it into the heads of the young people so that they will grow up wanting a revolution to build socialism.
Okay, I'm going to handle what is the big controversy in Utah. How's it coming here? Well, we have another one of our founders, John Goodlad. He is a nationally known education speaker. He speaks all over the place. He writes books. This is how this is getting into Utah. Unfortunately, BYU 25 years ago, the McKay School of Education, invited John Goodlad to come into their school to transform their education department. He, at that time, set up 5 partnership schools, school districts. So we have, Alpine is what we're dealing with, but don't think this is just an Alpine. He is also, who everybody follows, Nebo, Provo, Wasatch, and Jordan. Okay, so this encompasses a third of the children in Utah. He wrote the book, the enculturating statement, that's John Goodlad's. Charlotte Iserbyt from the Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, you probably have heard of. She hates him. She says he is America's premier change agent. All right. John Goodlad is is a socialist, an atheist, and a humanist. Why he is in Utah teaching at our universities, bringing this in, is beyond me. These are different quotes. Parents do not, that he has said in these books, parents do not own their children. They have no natural right to control their education fully. Most youth still hold the same values of their parents. If we do not alter this pattern, if we do not re-socialize, our system will decay. A standardized curriculum of basic skills such as reading, writing, and arithmetic, it can't prepare people to participate in a democracy. Enlightened social engineering is required to face situations that demand global action now. And he talks about Dewey. He loves Dewey. Both Bill Ayers and John Goodlad are followers of Dewey. And he talks about social democracy a lot. And he says the curriculum of the future will be what one might call the humanistic curriculum. This is why we have a problem, and this is a controversy, because there are so many educators, so many universities love this guy. But he has a lot of flowery words that he says, but you get down and you find a cockroach underneath all of the sugar candy on top. Okay. Now, as I was looking at John Goodlad research, I kept finding Bill Ayers. And I thought, Bill Ayers, big national guy. John Goodlad, never heard of him because I didn't go through the education system in Utah. Well, it turns out, what is the difference between these two men? Well, one used to blow up buildings, and that's about it. These two men, if you were to read their books side by side, you go to their lectures, everything, they are the same person. They're both education department heads. I made a mistake on that last slide. John Goodlad is over the University of Washington. Bill Ayers is the head of the education department in Chicago. They're both national speakers and authors in education and reform. They both speak of social justice, democracy, moral relativism. So morals are not absolute, they just kind of change with democracy. Humanism, and they're both socialists. And by the way, Ayers is the next keynote speaker at the upcoming Goodlad's NNER conference, National Network of Education Renewal. Okay, so Bill Ayers is tied in to Utah through John Goodlad.
Oh, brother.
Okay, so please don't think this education stuff is just going on in Chicago and California, New York. It is here. He is brilliant. He has decided, instead of just going to the university professors and just speaking with them and setting it up, we're going to make sure that it is completely ingrained all the way down to the student, and this is how he does it. He goes to the universities. He sets up. He doesn't work at a university here, but he goes to them and he completely revamps their programs and offers lots of praise, and he's so nationally recognized and everybody just loves him. So they just want to follow him hook, line, and sinker. So they go to the universities to set this program up. There, they teach all of the teachers to be, all the students that are going to be teachers. And they just fall in love with him. They have to read his books. And the teachers and the administrators, they bring it into the schools. The other thing is, you might forget that training after you've been out of school for a while, right? So let's form partnerships. I told you the 5 school districts in Utah that have partnerships with BYU and it's all John Goodlad, through McKay School of Education, it's all Goodlad. They provide the teachers for the districts. They're given awards, it goes back and forth. Money flows back and forth, people flow back and forth through Goodlad's organization and through all of these schools.